Hey everyone, this is Keith Baker. I am the host of the Dancing with Cancer podcast, where we talk about how to live an upbeat, joyful life in the middle of the cancer storm. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 9 of the Dancing with Cancer podcast. We are so excited that you have chosen to join us today. We are thrilled to have you be a part of the Dancing with Cancer podcast family, and we love these times that we get together. Today's podcast, we look at the question, what if there is no God? In other words, life is ugly sometimes, and it can be overwhelming at times. And just the day to day of life, the car breaks down, the bills come, you got more going out than coming in. You're panicked that you're not gonna be able to make payments, and then the car breaks down. Now you got that much more, or the house springs a leak, or floods the basement, or the list just goes on and goes on. And after a while, it just becomes overwhelming. And especially for those of you like myself who have, cancer or some other type of long-term physical ailment, it adds an extra layer on top of that. So not only do I have to worry about the financial aspects of getting the medicine paid for and the extra doctor visits and those types of things, but then you have the physical aspect of it that, I don't feel as well. I get tired. It's hard to focus when I'm at work, those kind of things. And the questions about my future that we don't know for sure exactly where it's going or how quickly it's going to get there, or those types. There's a lot of unknowns there. And for some people, that's extremely difficult. And so it's real easy to get caught up in that situation and just get overwhelmed with it all, and just start thinking, you know what? I look around me and it just seems like our world is getting crazier and crazier, and the anger, the divisiveness, the brutality, the perversion, it's crazy. And it could be easy to come to the place where it all adds up to the question, why would God allow this to happen? And maybe it's not that God allowed it to happen, but maybe it's that there is no God in the first place. And so that's what we want to talk about today in today's episode. Before we get into that full-fledged, I did want to give you guys an update. We did go to the doctor yesterday, my oncologist. We did have labs, and we did talk to him and asked a few questions, that kind of stuff. So the blood test came back. Well, before the blood test, I did gain a few pounds. Now, I know most people don't like to gain weight or don't want to gain weight. It's kind of our society thing. But in my case, I had lost 15 to 20 pounds due to the cancer and the different things we've discussed in the past. So I was actually trying to gain that weight back, and we did gain a few more pounds. So that was a positive. That was a good. And I'm really getting real close to where I was before I went on when I started losing weight. So that's a good thing. And then also when we looked at the numbers from my labs, my platelets, if I understood it correctly, the correct number for platelets should be a 140 or above. For most people, there's a range, but 140 is the low end of the range. And my platelets had kind of gone all the way down to in the mid 70s, right? So that's obviously not optimal. And so the oncologist was starting to get a little concerned because it had kind of trended downward and hit the mid 70s last time we were there. He said for now we're going to hang tight and see what happens next time, and hopefully that Jakafi would help that. but if it had gotten down to the 50s, then it would be Mayday, Mayday, panic time. So fortunately, this last yesterday when we went to the doctor, the platelets had bounced back up into the mid 90s again. So that's a huge, huge step in the right direction as well. Again, the Jakafi is treating the symptoms, but it's not a cure. But it still affects my day-to-day healthiness, if you will, or how I feel day to day, and even my physical health day to day, in those types of things. So my platelets have turned back up in the positive direction, and so that's extremely, extremely beneficial and good. And so that's where we're at. We're still in the midst of this situation. As far as symptoms go, again, the Jakafi has been great as far as treating the symptoms I had early on. Again, I was having real bad itchiness, especially in the legs, and so it was making it real hard to sleep at night. I was having night sweats again, and that just again affects the sleep more than anything else. And both of those have pretty much gone away completely. I mean, maybe mild every now and again, but not like they were. So that's extremely good. My spleen is shrinking, which is good. It was almost double the size of the average spleen, and so now it's shrinking back to what it's normally do, which is probably why my platelet numbers are coming back up as well, and some of those kinds of things. So far, the Jakafi seems to be doing what it needs to be doing. My symptoms are much, much better, or the symptoms I had previously. Now, for the most part, the symptoms I'm experiencing are a lot of mild aches and pains. And it's not any one place. It's just my entire body at different times, different locations. And it's really kind of bizarre, because it could be my wrist, it could be my elbow, it could be my legs, my knees, my feet, my hands. It just kind of shows up somewhere, and sometimes it's a pain, sometimes it's an ache, but the doctor seems to think that this is pretty normal and probably a byproduct or a side effect of the Jakafi, and as long as it doesn't get too serious, painful, we keep moving forward like we are. So there's that, and then there is some fatigue still and tiredness as opposed to pre-cancer, that kind of thing. And so, it is what it is. You go on with life, and you plod on. So that's where we're at. Again, I appreciate everyone's concerns, the encouragement that you have been sending me, and the prayers. It means more than I can say. But we did want to address this idea of what if God's not really God? I mean, what if there is no God? What if life is what it is? There was an explosion a few thousand years ago, or a few million years ago, I guess is what they're saying, or millions and millions of years ago. And the Big Bang went boom, and everything is spreading out. And we've evolved over the years just randomly by luck. And we're where we are. And we live this life, and then we die, and boom, it's over. We're done. It's interesting for me personally, because I grew up in church, right? So I've kind of been exposed to the God idea, concept from day one. And as a child, I believe in God because mom and dad said there's a God, right? I mean, you just kind of take it at face value, and you assume it to be correct. And I, like most teenagers, or some people do it as preteens, teens. Some don't do it till they get to college. But during the teen years for me was the questioning years. I used to, when I did youth ministry, I used to tell parents that every child will at some point take everything you teach them as a parent. They'll take it, they'll go over here and set it on a table, and they'll walk away from it. And then over time, they'll come back and pick up those things one at a time. So all the ideas that you've taught them, all the morals that you taught them, all the ideas and concepts and beliefs that you've taught them, they will at some point take them and set them on a table, walk away from them, and then over time come back and pick up some of them they won't pick up. And it's a scary process for parents because you don't know for sure where that child's going to end up or what they're going to believe or not believe, kind of thing. And however, it is a very normal and natural process. And it's an extremely important process because until that happens, that child's beliefs and convictions aren't his beliefs and convictions. They're his parents' beliefs and convictions. And so it's extremely important that they go through this process where they take everything, set it on the table, walk away from it, because when they come back and pick it back up, then it becomes their own ideas, their own beliefs, and their own convictions. And that's extremely important. And I went through the same type of scenario. I didn't recognize it at the time, of course. I was just a teenager. But I did go through a lot of questioning, and some of it was just normal teen stuff where you goof around, you do stupid stuff, you say stupid stuff just because you're a kid. But then there's also a part of you that's, or at least for me there was, where I was just trying to figure out life. It seemed like it seemed like at times it was a struggle just to get through the day at school, and everybody had different ideas, and there's, if you remember in school or high school especially, a lot of peer pressure, a lot of groups that are you in this group, or are you in that group, or are you an athlete or a jock or a skater dude, or are you the hippie or the druggie, or and or the brainiacs or whatever. You had all these different groups, and it seemed like you're supposed to belong to one of the groups. And then there was I really didn't belong to any of the groups. I had friends in almost all the groups, or acquaintances, friends, whatever. But I didn't really fit in to any of them very well, or I didn't feel like I did at the time. And I think that's something a lot of people struggle with as well, is feeling like they don't fit in. But again, I'm kind of getting off track. The point I was getting at was, for me, when I was a child, I believed in God because mom and dad said there was a God. As a teenager, I went through a lot of questioning. At 16, 17-ish, while I was still in high school, I had rededicated my life to God. I felt like he revealed himself to me in new and unique ways. But since then, the thing that's really kept me strong in my faith more than any other one thing, I believe, is science. And I know that may seem strange to some of you, but I believe that science, when you study it and really look into it, it points towards God. Now, it doesn't prove God. You can't take science and you can't put God in a test tube, right? And measure it and test it and say, oh, yep, here's God. I got him in my test tube. Or it's not like there's a strip you put and you touch it, and if it turns blue, there's a God. Well, it turned blue. There is a God. God is not measurable in the physical world in that context or in that way. And so therefore we can't measure it or in theory completely prove that there is or isn't a God. It goes both directions, right? But I do believe there's a huge amount of information in science that points towards a God or points towards a designer. In other words, when you look at science, there is so much structure and so much design and so much detail. The chances of all these things coming together and working together would be astronomically impossible to happen randomly, as we're often told. And so my faith has been strengthened over the years because of my understanding of science and even looking into science. Now, I get, and I know that in the last 20 years, there's been this narrative that's been pushed a lot by the secularist in our society, trying to paint this picture, this dichotomy that, hey, you have to either believe in God or believe in science, but you can't believe in both, which I think is BS. And what it does is it tells me that they don't understand history. And they don't even understand the history of science, because many of the early scientists were actually believers. And it was their belief in God that led them into science. In other words, it was in their minds, in their understanding that, hey, if there's a God, if there's a creator, then there's a structure to creation. And if there's a structure to creation, if there's laws to creation, then we should be able to study and understand those laws. And it's science is actually a byproduct of many of the early scientists' belief in a God, or belief in God. I always thought that was kind of interesting how we've kind of twisted the narrative in the last 20 years to do an either or. It's either God or it's science. It's either religion or it's science. No, it's just the opposite. For me, it's the exact opposite. The more I study science, the better I understand God. And not only that, the more I study science, studying science for me has almost become a way to worship God, because again, I am amazed at the creativity of God, and I am amazed at how well how amazing He is, or His creation is, right? The detail and of the human body, for example, right? The detail and the way it all works together, right? How our ecology works together. So you have, for example, animals, right? Animals eat plants. They get nutrients from the plants. A small animal eats a plant. They get nutrients from the plant. A bigger animal eats the smaller animal, and the bigger animal gets the nutrients from the smaller animal. And when an animal dies, it body decomposes, and the nutrients go back into the soil, right? That again help for the next generation of plants. And even at the risk of being crude, even when the animals go to the bathroom, it becomes fertilizer, right? Because the nutrients are being passed on to the ground. So there's a cycle where the one thing's built upon the other, and the one thing feeds the other, and the one thing helps the other, almost like it was designed to work that way. And then you look at the human body, like the thumbprint, right? If you think about your thumbprint, if we were to ask the best artist in the world to take I don't know, an inch by 3/4 inch square, and to make a million different designs, but have zero duplicates, even if he was intentionally trying to do that, he would not, he couldn't do it. He would not be able to make a million different designs. And yet we have, I don't even know what, 300 million people on the earth. I don't even know what it is right now. So we literally have 300 million thumbprints and zero duplicate thumbprints. Now, if you believe in evolution, in theory, it means it's all random. That everything that happens, if it makes you stronger, it makes you healthier, you keep those qualities because you live longer. And if it makes you weaker or that, then you die off, and those qualities go away. And so in theory, over thousands or millions of years, we've evolved into what we are. But in theory, it's all random. And so for me, it doesn't make sense to me why we would have a unique thumbprint if it's all random. Why there isn't at least one duplicate out of 300 million thumbprints if it's just random. There has to be a controlling factor there to prevent there from becoming a duplicate. But it goes even further than that, because it's not just the 300 million that are alive today. but there was the previous generation and the previous generation before that. And to my knowledge, they've not found any duplicates, even going back as long as they've been tracking or tracing the thumbprints. Now, obviously, they couldn't use thumbprints as a means of prosecuting someone if there was even the slightest chance that there were duplicates out there. It's the fact that everyone is convinced that there's no duplicate thumbprints that allows them to use a thumbprint as a means to prosecute someone, to prove that they were at a certain location at a certain time, and so on and so forth. But then it goes farther, because now we know that we have unique DNA, that literally every single person has a different, unique DNA. And so, again, for me, it shows how important every single individual is to God, that he would give them a unique DNA, a unique thumbprint. It's his stamp of approval saying, you were designed by me unique, different from everyone else. It's not just a rubber stamp that boom, 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 the machine's popping them out and you're all the same. We're not. Every single individual is just that, an individual. There is no one else like you by design. You are one of a kind, and you are a one of a kind thumbprint. You're a one of a kind DNA, and you are a one of a kind person because God created you that way. It goes farther though, right? We know now that your eye is unique. And so now they're doing, for security, eye scans. And they can do an eye scan. They could only do an eye scan if your eye scan was unique to you. So here we have just a small sample of why, in my mind, science points to a creator, a designer, that there's too many things of this nature to be just on coincidence, right? I don't know if that makes sense to you. I just wanted to kind of throw that out there and give you something to think about. And you know, when that thought comes to my mind that maybe there's not a God, there's so much hurt, so much craziness, so much pain. And why am I going through what I'm going through today, the cancer and all that kind of stuff? Even if I wanted to, I couldn't not believe in God, because it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't logically line up in my mind. And in my mind, it's almost like you have to choose to be an atheist first and then struggle to make the reasons line up with it. So it's almost like it takes more faith to be an atheist than it does to be a believer, to believe in a God. You almost have to ignore a lot of science or bend over backwards to twist the science enough to make it say something that it doesn't naturally say. Anyways, that's just a few thoughts about what if there is no God? Everyone will have to make that decision for themselves. And I hope each and every one of you come to the conclusion, because I believe your life will be dramatically changed in a positive way if you have a relationship with Jesus Christ. It will change everything from the get-go and will make so much more joy and peace come into your life. But again, that is a choice that each and every one of us have to make for ourselves. Good luck with that. We love you. We're praying for you. See you next week. Bye. Hey, thanks to everyone for stopping by. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the like button. Also, please slam that subscribe button to ensure that you do not miss on any future episodes. Lastly, if you know someone who needs encouragement or who is going through a difficult time, please share this with them. More than anything else, we want to share this joy and hope that we have with as many people as possible. And we'd love to have others join the Dancing with Cancer family. Until next time, adios.